we can start. Welcome everybody again. My name is Dennis Donko. I work at the COE here at Case Western Reserve University, and I'm gonna be doing the training for today, and I'm gonna be doing that with my colleague, Laura Overman. Laura, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello. I also work with Dennis with the COE here at Case Western. And as with the training, I will be doing the first part, and Dennis will be taking over for the second part of the training. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking time on your Friday. And if we're ready, I know a few people are coming in. But the initial is just some introduction. So I think we can get started. You'll receive through your super users at your agencies the slide deck, so you don't have to copy this down. This is our contact information. I'm sorry, I'm not sharing. Thank you, Dennis. Technology challenged. Still not sharing. Oh, it is now? Okay. Okay. Right, but I didn't grab the right screen. So let me redo that.
Okay.
Are you seeing the slide?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. Okay, I see. It's just that over there. Okay, great. So you see our contact information, you'll receive this, and your super users have it. Before we get started into the tasks for the evaluation, just want to give a brief explanation of why we're doing this. It is a requirement by ODM, and to look at the fidelity of the high fidelity wraparound care coordination that's being used to serve you through Ohio RISE. And this will be done annually. So fidelity refers to a practice being implemented as intended by the developers. And the reason being is because the evidence-based practice is associated with outcomes. And in order to ensure those outcomes, you want to be implementing as close to as the developers intended as possible. So the purpose of a evaluation of fidelity is to see just that, how closely it aligns with what the developers intended. And this complements a continuous quality improvement evaluation of your efforts, all with the goal of improving outcomes. It also increases the likelihood of consistency across different agencies and providers that are serving Ohio RISE. It provides accountability and identifies potential gaps that could be addressed through professional development, as well as highlighting the strengths of your agency and where you're aligning well with the high fidelity wraparound, all to inform professional development needs. The fidelity evaluation will be conducted through a survey, and to be surveyed will be the care coordinators, because care coordinators are providing the direct service and working closely with the youth and families and coordinating the wraparound process with caregivers of the youth who are working in the wraparound on the wraparound team. And if there is an adult youth not working with a caregiver, then the adult youth will be surveyed with the youth version. Not everyone potentially on your caseload will be evaluated. First of all, we receive from Aetna all the youth associated with your agency, and then we determine who's eligible for the evaluation. There are certain criteria that we've developed working with Aetna, but basically, to sum that criteria, to be eligible, a youth must have an active status at the time of the evaluation cycle and have had the opportunity to be receiving care coordination for at least 4 months. And again, I said not all, because if that number of eligible clients is greater than 40, we will take 30% of that number. So if it's 41 clients, we will take 30% of 41. If the caseload is 40 or less, all youth will be sampled. And we are not including from Aetna tier 1, it's just tiers 2 and 3. The survey is called the WFI-EASY, which stands for the Wraparound Fidelity Index Brief Version. It is a self-administered survey. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. And it measures how well the care coordination adheres to the principles of wraparound and caregiver satisfaction. There are 4 sections: basic information about the wraparound process, experiences in wraparound, and that section has actually 5 subsections that tap into effective teamwork, needs-based, outcomes-based, natural community supports, and strength and family-driven. And then an outcome section that is looking at since the youth started working with your agency in this episode with care coordination, has there been system involvement and negative system involvement, negative interactions with law enforcement or the juvenile justice system, out of home placement, needing to go to the ER for an emotional behavioral health reason. And also functioning, how well has the youth been doing or not doing since starting care coordination? Have they caused stress in the household? Are they interacting with others in the household, in the community, in the school or work? And then for the caregiver or adult youth, there is a satisfaction section that looks at their satisfaction with their experiences with wraparound. The care coordinator section has all but the satisfaction section. Okay. We will be using a platform called WrapStat to conduct this evaluation. WrapStat and the WFI-EASY were both developed by the University of Washington. And WrapStat supports the assessment tools of wraparound evaluation, of the wraparound evaluation and research team at the University of Washington. It allows for an efficient mechanism to send out the surveys, to collect the data, house the data, and run reports. So it allows for the automation of fidelity monitoring. And in the process, as I said, we will receive data from Aetna, and we will determine the youth from that data who are eligible and upload those eligible youth to WrapStat in a place called the youth roster. Youth will have a unique ID, a WRAP ID, which is their CANS recipient ID. So when we communicate with the agency, we cannot give names or receive names. We don't have a secure email. So if there's a question on our end about a particular youth, or you have a question about a situation with that youth, you would identify the youth through the WRAP ID. Both your super users and you as care coordinators will have your own login access to WrapStat. Through WrapStat, we will electronically send the initial invitations with the survey links via professional email to care coordinators, and email and or text to caregivers or adult youth. And then the survey is accessed through that link and automatically stored in WrapStat. So the role of this COE is to manage the data from Aetna, prepare it, upload it to WrapStat, to provide the trainings and the guidance materials which you will receive, to set up the evaluation cycle, including if there is random selection, and supporting the sites in doing what you're going to be learning about in preparing the youth roster to be able to send out the invitations. So we will send out the initial invitation and then continue to work with the primary CMEs and subdelegates with any ongoing CQI efforts. And then ultimately this all will result in a report. If a CME is working with subdelegates, the CME will see the primary CME and the subdelegate. A subdelegate will get a report for their particular agency. And then annually, there will be a leadership report that goes to ODM. Within the CME and subdelegate, your super users are your point of contact, the liaison between us and you, although you also can email us, but they will serve in the role of supporting your efforts. They will be tasked with, once the data is uploaded and the evaluation cycle has been conducted and the random selection, if that needs to be done, they will be verifying and correcting care coordinator information on the youth roster to make sure that what was uploaded from Aetna matches what's current, the care coordinator associated with the youth. They will then provide you with a list of the youth who have been selected for the evaluation, who you are providing care coordination for, because those are the youth you will then have some tasks in RAPSTAT, and support you throughout the cycle and communicate with us about any emerging issues, enrollment issues that arise, like, hey, this youth has moved or changed care coordinators, and we will process how best to handle that. You as care coordinators ultimately or eventually will, in your workflow when you're getting consent, we think we'll be sharing about this. Hey, you might be selected in the future. But right now, because that hasn't been done, we do have an information sheet for informing your current families who are selected that they will be receiving an invitation to conduct this, or I'm sorry, to complete the survey. You will be entering some contact information for caregivers or adult youth if there is not a caregiver involved, because that's what RAPSTAT uses to send out the links. And then also some baseline outcome information and who the legal custodian is, not the name, but their relationship, birth parent or adoptive parent. And we'll go through all this. You'll complete, as I said, your the WIFI Easy for your youth who's been sampled or youths, and then also encourage caregivers and adult youth to complete the WIFI Easy. It's about from the day that the invitations are sent. It's a 3-month cycle where prior to the invitations being sent, as I said, there's some data work that gets done in RAPSTAT. And then there are 2 months to complete the WIFI Easy the caregivers and care coordinators have. And then in that 3rd month, we will be creating our reports and sharing back with you. So again, in that 1st month, we will send the links to your professional email or to caregivers or adult youth through an email and or a cell phone if it's a cell phone that has access to the internet. And then your super users will be sending reminders after the first 2 weeks and throughout the remainder as needed. And reminders will go to all those who have not started or have partially completed their response. And then in the 2nd month, we will be, reporting back to you about response rates and if we need to touch in, encourage to send reminders or look into, hey, there's some incomplete responses. Maybe your care coordinators could follow up on that. Now, there are people who might not have access to a computer or a smartphone. And so there is the possibility of doing a paper and pencil version. And we have a packet prepared that instructs on how to do that. But basically, the big thing to remember with that is that the client will receive a self-addressed stamped envelope that would go back to one of the super users, because we tell them as part of confidentiality that no one providing you direct service will have access to your responses. So as a timeline, just to show it in another way, prior to the evaluation cycle being set up, super users will be entering you as all the care coordinators in the agency in to necessary places in Rapstat and then inviting you to activate your account and set up your login and login. Then after the evaluation cycle is run, they will be doing that verification in the youth roster, making sure that the correct care coordinator is associated with the youth and communicating with us if there's confusion or questions. Then the following week, and these are really calendar days, but roughly day 8 through 15, you will be provided the list of these are your youth that you're serving who are part of the evaluation cycle. And then you would go into Rapstat just for those youth, not for all youth in the youth roster, because the youth roster will be all the youth who are eligible. And then within those are the ones who are part of the evaluation. And you would enter the information, and we're going to show you how to do that. And in that process, you as well will be communicating with your super users like, hey, they're about to move. What do I do? Something like that. And we'll be in constant contact of how to handle these different situations. And then inform the families who are selected through email or text or at a team meeting. And we have an information sheet we'll share with you. And then day 16, the initial message of invitations will be sent out. Day 30, reminder messages, and thereafter. And then just throughout, encouraging families to complete. And this is just that information sheet that basically underscores that it's beneficial. You know, families have a chance to let their voices be heard, to share about their experiences, with ultimately the goal of improving the wraparound process and outcomes for children and families all across Ohio. We will put as the point of contact, if there are questions, your super users. It can't be stressed enough. We understand that care coordinators are a vital link in the chain to a successful evaluation, because you are the ones encouraging families, meeting with families, answering questions from families, as well as providing your own experiences with care coordination and ensuring that we have accurate information in Rapstat. So now we're going to get into the how-tos, and then Dennis is going to actually go into Rapstat and show you in Rapstat some of the how-tos. But the first is you will get something like this, an email from Rapstat inviting you to activate your account. And you would simply just click on the Activate Account button, and you'll be directed to create your password. After you've done that, you'll log in for the first time. Your username will always be your professional email. After logging in for the first time, you'll have to go through a multi-factor authentication process, which is a two-step verification method where you will click send email to, it will be your professional email, send me a code, a 6-digit code. And then your email will be like this. It'll give the code. This will appear after you've said, send me the code, and you'll just put the code here. If you click trust and remember this device before you click submit code, then you will not have to go through the two-step verification again. You'll enter Rapstat in the dashboard. You will have permission to the dashboard, the youth roster, and there's also a tab of resources that University of Washington has put with some tutorial videos and their manual. But you will also be receiving this as well as our guidance materials, which are more tailored to this evaluation. If you are in a subdelegate or a CME that serves as a subdelegate for another site and serve more than one site, you won't have to do it this time because this is the first time you're going into Rapstat, but you would eventually be linked to more than one site, and you would have to come up here and click which site you're interested in for this particular evaluation. To enter the legal custodian type, you would leave the dashboard and click on youth roster. and click on demographic information and click on the orange button and then click on demographic information, the orange button next to the youth in question. And you can search for the youth by just typing in the CANS ID or the name. And if the CANS ID is like CANS R0000123445, you just put in 12345. It'll come up. And then you'll already see gender and race because that will be uploaded from our data from Aetna. And you would click the arrow here for select legal custodian, and these are your choices. If none of these are, then click other, and then you would enter in what the other is. But we don't get that from the Aetna data. That's why we're asking you to do it. And then the crucial part is entering the caregiver contact information and updating it if it changes over time. To do that, again, you're on the youth roster and you will do it for each of your youth who have been sampled. You find them, click the orange button, and you're going to enter name, phone number, and email address. We don't need a land address, city, state, zip code. You're going to enter caregiver information for the most part, unless it's an adult youth not working with a caregiver, and then the caregiver section would be blank. I want to point out there is this button, and it doesn't have the ellipse with a line through it. There's a blue button that says same as caregiver. Because if an agency is using their youth roster for their administrative purposes, they can just click that and the address for the youth duplicates what's entered for the caregiver. We don't want that because Rapstat is going to send a link to wherever there's address information. So if you did that, the caregiver would get a link to both the caregiver survey and the youth survey. We don't want that. So you're only entering, if there's a caregiver on the Rapstat team, you're only entering caregiver information. And that should be for all youth under 18 or youth 18 or older who are working with a caregiver. We understand that it might not always be clear who the caregiver is. For purposes of the caregiver survey, it's someone that can shed light on the perspective of the adult who's responsible for providing caretaking for the youth and is an active participant in the youth and family wraparound team. The caregiver does not have to be the legal guardian. For example, if it's a biological parent and the step parent could be the one who attends the meetings and is entered as the caregiver. But also, if the youth is in CSB custody, some youth may be in foster or kinship homes, others in facilities like a group home or a residential home. So the guideline is that for youth who are in their family of origin, biological, adoptive, foster, or a kinship home, the With the Easy caregiver survey would be completed by the parent, adoptive parent, foster parent, or kinship home parent. But if the youth is in child welfare custody or any type of residential or group home setting, or I'm sorry, and are in any type of residential or group home setting, the caseworker would be the caregiver as opposed to a staff member in the home. And caseworkers will not probably think of themselves as the caregiver. So we ask you just to notify them, hey, you're going to be receiving an invitation to take this survey. It's not a mistake. We ask you to complete the caregiver version for this youth. For youth who are in their family of origin, biological, adoptive, parent custody, and also in a residential center, still it would be the biological parent or adoptive parent who would be the caregiver surveyed. So as I mentioned, if it's an adult youth not working with a caregiver, then we want the contact information for the youth. It's the same process. If you find the youth in the youth roster, click the orange button, go to contact information, and then below the caregiver is a section for youth contact information. And same thing, you would just, you could put the youth name at the top and then the phone number cell phone number, and email address. If you hit same as caregiver, it would turn this all to blank because there's nothing in the caregiver section. So again, just don't hit same as caregiver. And we don't need a mailing address, just like with caregivers. Then the last piece of information that we ask you, and just do this all, all at once, while you're in there for each youth. They're called outcomes, but they're basically baseline. It's basically baseline information. So again, you're in the youth roster. You can either hit enrollment and then find the youth, or click the orange button and then choose enrollment at the top. And this is going to appear. You'll be asked yes or no or don't know. And then if you say yes, a box appears asking for the number of arrests, number of suspensions, approximate number of days, etc. And this refers to a time period that occurred within the 12-month period prior to their enrollment with your agency and starting care coordination. There is also on this page a place about referral source, reason, and date, and you don't need to do anything with that. And after you've entered, you would just hit save. And then you would be done with entering the information we need to be able to then send the invitations. We are providing a communication log to your super users to gather that information if there are any kind of issues with enrollment, changes in care coordinator, barriers to completing it. If there's a different language, if they're not proficient in English, because we would need to know that. They do have the option to take the Wi-Fi Easy in Spanish, but the invitations go out in English. So if we needed to create invitations in Spanish, we would need to know that pretty early on. We put the date that the sampling occurred because that's our anchor. So if changes happen prior to that date, they left the CME, they moved, the care coordinator changed, or if it happened after that date, that determines what would happen. And we share those decision rules, but basically, like if the person moved prior to the random sampling date, they technically shouldn't have been included, and we will close them out. But if they moved after the date, we would still ask you enter the information. They may not complete it, but we still ask the care coordinator to complete it. In both, it says second month, but first and second month, we ask you to encourage completion at team meetings or through other means of communication with your families who've been selected, and also, reach out to your super user if you think the paper pencil version would be more appropriate. And that's what this is about. If they don't have access, as I said, there's the paper pencil version. We do ask that there's no discussion about the items. The Wi-Fi Easy is pretty self-explanatory. It's not a lot of it's no jargon. And even if it asks like about out-of-home placement, it gives examples of what that means. So we would ask you, we just leave the paper pencil version and then instruct them to mail it back when they're completed. This is what you will receive. This is your invitation to complete the Wi-Fi Easy for a youth who's been selected. The youth's name will not be in the email to protect confidentiality. You would click Take Survey, and then you'll see at the very beginning for which youth the survey applies to. And you just would say, yes, you're the care coordinator, next, and it guides you to the sections. And it's just a click and then next. And when you're done, you would submit and close out. This is what the caregiver will see. They'll also, they'll get both the email and a text with button to click to take the survey, and the button would be where this %URL is. The first thing they see is something asking, are they the caregiver? And that's why we ask that you let caseworkers know, yes, you are the caregiver for these purposes. They'd hit yes and next. Oh, I got a typo. And then they would be given also an option to consent or not. They could decline. And if they say no and submit, they're done. If they say yes, then they'll be walked through the process. This is just, we've already talked about this. And then just to give you a sense of what do you get out of this? So this is that section that gives those 5 subsections. You see your scores over time. You can see progress compared to national means. There are also benchmarks of inadequate, borderline, adequate, high fidelity, and you can see where your scores fall. And I think we've said this long ago, but just to reiterate, this is in no way any type of performance evaluation. This is looking in aggregate at your agency as a whole. So that concludes, I'm going to stop sharing. That concludes the slide deck of the how-to. And as Dennis is getting set up, we could take a moment if there are any questions right now.
So if the family refuses to complete it, then the care coordinator needs to complete it?
The care coordinator can still completes it, yes.
Okay.
Because the family is just, they don't want to share their experiences with it. It's not a refusal to be a part of the evaluation. It's just a refusal to complete the WIFI easy.
Will you be able to put the slides in the chat, or you have to send it to
It's going to be
my
sent to
supervisor?
your, yeah, it's going to be sent to the super user, and then you'll be getting these very shortly. We're going to, I believe the 17th is when we will be running the evaluation cycle. So you have a little time before you'll be needing to enter the contact information and the other data. So you'll have time to go through and review, as well as, like I said, we have a guidebook, and then also an abridged kind of couple cheat sheets to keep at the ready. Oh, and one other thing, let me share before Dennis goes on. I always forget. We did a pilot with 2 sites, and they recommended that, once we're doing this in Rapstat, we have to go back and forth and find the information. So we've created a spreadsheet where you can write everything down first, so you just have it at the ready. So I'm just going to show that to you real quickly. Okay, so I'll share my screen again. Okay, so you have your ID for the youth, who the care coordinator is, the name, last name, and any issues impacting the evaluation, like we talked about, that your super user would then communicate with us. And then you can indicate, and I just put who the choices are, the legal guardian, contact information, and I reiterate, where you find this, how-tos to do this, and that who it's for, or if it's the adult youth, a youth not working with a care coordinator, and then these outcomes. So you can have this at the ready when you go into Rapstat. Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as Laura had showed us earlier on, you're going to receive an invitation into Rapstat, and then that will help you to create your user name and password. Once you are able to create your username and password, you can then access Rapstat. So there will be a link. You click the link and that takes you to the website, and we'll be asking you about your username and password. You type those in. And then if it's the first time, you'll be requested to do a two-factor authentication, but then you can select trust this computer and then you will not be able, you don't have to do it the next time. So I have done it a couple of times, so I don't have to do it. So you just click login and that takes you into Rapstat. Now in Rapstat, or at the welcome page, sort of, there are a number of tabs that you're going to see at the top here. Depending on your level of permission, you're not going to see all these tabs. So as care coordinators, you're going to see this dashboard tab, you see the youth roster tab, and then you see the resource center tab. So I'm going to take you through the various tabs. Let's start with the resource center tab. So the resource center tab is where you are going to find a series of videos that have been done by the developers of this software or this website. And it shows you some of the things that we are going to show you. So some of them are chunked into like shorter videos, so you can go through it, and then if any of them would be helpful for you, you can watch, and then that will be helpful. However, we are going to give you a video recording of this training. We are going to add the PowerPoint, and then we're also going to add a user guide, as Laura said earlier. The other thing you're going to see is this dashboard here. The dashboard will tell you, and it will give you a general overview of all the data that's in Rapstat, so you'll be able to know how the completion of the reviews is going and all that. So, but the main tab that you are going to do most of the work in is the youth roster tab. Now, in terms of workflow, let's think about it this way. The first step will be your super users providing you with the kits that are associated with you. So the kits that you are working with, those that are part of the evaluation cycle. So if you go into the youth roster, as Laura indicated, you're going to see all the youth that are eligible. You are not working with all the youth that are eligible. You're only working with a set of youth that are eligible and are associated with you. So once you go into the youth roster tab, the first thing I want you to note is that you need to, once you receive the list that your super user is going to provide for you, you then have to go on to the spreadsheet that Laura showed you earlier on and provide all the information for the kits that are associated with you. So the legal custodian, information about the baseline survey system survey that you're going to do, and then the contact information of the caregiver, or if the youth is their own caregiver, you take the contact information of that youth, and then you provide that in a spreadsheet. So you have all the information about the youth before you even go into Rapstat. Once you are in Rapstat, because this information has been provided for you, you need to avoid this tab here, the Add Youth tab. So this button allows you to add a youth to Rapstat, but all the youth have already been added to Rapstat. You do not need to add any youth into Rapstat. If you are not seeing a youth that you work with, it's either they are not eligible and they're also not part of the evaluation cycle. So you need to avoid this button right here. You also need to make sure that you are in the right agency. So you can come to select site and make sure you are selecting your right site. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm selecting our test site. So as you can see, I have that checked here. Now, because there are a number of youth in the youth roster, and you are just working with a select few, you may want to search them by their CANS recipient ID. So for instance, if I want to search a youth that my super user has given me, I can just type the last 4 numbers or 3 numbers in their CANS recipient ID, and that youth is going to show up. So I'm going to type 970 here, and that is going to show me one of the youth in my roster. To change or to add any information about that you need to click this orange button here that says edit youth. You click on that youth and you would already have the information that you're going to enter in here. The first thing you need to do is to go to the demographic information and then scroll down and add the legal custodian. You click on the drop down here and then you select from the options available. If none of the options apply, you select other and you specify whichever one you think applies. So for instance, I can select foster parent for this youth. And then I click on save. And the next tab that you need to work in is the contact information. So as Laura said, if the youth has a caregiver, you only need to provide their name, their phone number, and then their email address. You don't have to provide any information for their mailing address, their city, their state, or their zip code. Once you're done providing this information, you avoid this. It doesn't have the ellipse with the cancel sign in it, but you need to avoid this at all costs. Take it that you don't touch it, like you don't need to press it for any reason. So avoid the same as caregiver button. Don't touch it, don't press it. Just scroll down and save the information for the caregiver that you have just provided. If the youth does not have a caregiver, they are 18 and they are their own caregiver, you do not provide any information here. You scroll down to where it says youth contact information, and then you provide that information. The phone number, their email. You don't need to provide their mailing address. Just provide that, scroll down and click on save. Then you are done with the second part of the information that you're providing for the same youth on your list. The last thing that you would need to do for that youth is to go on the enrollment tab. So you click on the enrollment tab and then you scroll down, and then the system level analysis, that's the system level information, that's the baseline information we are taking, will be showing up. All the questions are here. You simply have to just click it. If you click it and it asks for extra information, for instance, how many times that user has been arrested, you can type that number in here, for instance, 2. And then you scroll down and continue to answer the questions as they appear. And then once you are done with that, you hit on save and you are done with that youth. So once you have all the information for all the youth on your list, it's pretty easy. You just need to go in there, click on the various tabs and provide the information, hit on save, don't do any extra thing, and you are done with that youth. You move on to the next youth on your list. If you have 5 youth on your list, you could do this in a day. The other thing I want to show you is you are not going to have access to the data management tab, but I want to use that to show you how the surveys you're going to receive are going to look like. So okay, so what Laura showed you is the beginning of the survey. Is going to say take the survey. You're going to hit on that and all the other information that are going to appear. And then the survey questions are going to look something like this. So they are just buttons that you need to click. You're just supposed to select from the options, whichever ones you think apply, and just hit next. And then another series of questions are going to come. You just select whichever ones you think applies, click on next. If you don't have information on a question, you can click next and provide the information that you have, and then maybe you need to do consultation to get the other information. You can go back to the survey and then you can complete that information. And then keep hitting next, not answering all the questions that come next. If you need to provide, type in anything for an open-ended question, you just type that in and then you hit next. So that survey is complete, and then you hit complete and then you are done. So this is all that you're going to do for all the youth that are going to be on your list. Not all the youth that are on the youth roster, just the youth that are going to be on your list. From the pilot, everybody or every care coordinator was having on average 5 to 7 youth. So pretty much that's what you should be expecting. Maybe 5, maybe 7, maybe less than that. And then you provide this information for all that you, and then you are done. So I'll end it here unless anybody has questions for me.
We know that as you get into it, questions might arise. And we will be sending out dates for a drop-in session the week about in the time span that you'll be doing this, that you're welcome to attend if it fits your schedule. If you want to walk through or have specific questions, as well as you can, communicate to your super user or us, and we'll refer you to either where it is in the user guide if you're not sure, or answer the question if it's not answered in the user guide. So the bulk of your task really is that upfront before the invitations get sent out, and then just continuing to encourage your families until the close of the evaluation cycle, or the close of the survey cycle. Okay. Well,
30 days to get it done, right? To get all of them done.
no, the surveys, you mean to complete the surveys?
Yeah.
There's no, there's more than 30 days. It would be great if care coordinators are done in the first 30 days, but the caregivers have there is a little more time from the day the invitations are sent out. Well, it depends on how long it takes the upfront work to go, but it's either going to be 2 months or a little less than 2 months to get the surveys done.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your time, and you will be hearing, through your super users, probably at some point early next week or midweek to go in, or by the end of the week to go in and activate your accounts, and then they will do that work they need to do first to make sure youth are associated with the correct care coordinators, and then they'll let you know, hey, you're on deck, tag, you're it. So I appreciate again your time, and I wish everybody a good weekend and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Is there a